Welcome to Hank's Place. In the first chapter of John's Gospel, John writes that Jesus came into the world, but the world did not recognize him. He came to his own, but his own did not receive him. His own people couldn't see him for who he really was, and neither did the world whom he had created. Amazing. Jesus, second person of the Trinity, born to Mary. Theologians agree he was fully man, but some have had issues with his being fully God. Was he only human, partly God, fully God? Did he lay aside some or all of none of his divinity? Philippians 2:7 says Jesus emptied himself or divested himself, taking the form of a man. What's that mean? Was Jesus less than fully God? Well, thankfully, other scriptures provide us with clarification. In Colossians 1:19, Paul writes that it was the Father's good pleasure for all of the fullness to dwell in him, in Christ. And in Colossians 2:9, Paul writes, in Christ, all the fullness of deity lives in bodily form. So Jesus in the flesh was something like the king or the prince in those movies where they take off their royal robes and rings and dress like a commoner, and they're not recognized for who they truly are until later in the story. They remain fully the king or the prince. It was the people who couldn't recognize them. These passages powerfully affirm the fact that Jesus is God. The fullness or totality of God is found in Christ. Everything that can be said of God can be said of Jesus Christ. So what is this fullness? The fullness of God is the totality of everything God is. It's his attributes and his character, his perfection, his holiness, his power, his love, and on and on. The fullness of God is his complete nature. It's who he is. Now for the point of today's message, and this is incredible, Colossians 2 and verse 10, we find Paul saying that in Christ we ourselves have been brought to fullness. As Christians, we find our completeness in Christ, no one else. Jesus, who is the fullness of God in bodily form, makes us whole by his grace. The nature, the fullness of God himself has been given us. My friend, allow yourself to grow into Christ, okay? Paul in Ephesians 3:19, following a lengthy prayer, well, he asks God that by his power to grace the Ephesians, he says, may they be filled to all the fullness of God. Filled to all the fullness of God? That's right. Paul's praying we experience the full indwelling of God. Whoa! As God indwells believers, we become partakers of the divine nature. 2 Peter 1:4. The rich treasures of God are available to us, enabling us to live more like Jesus Christ. The fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. We have that fruit within, so let's let it out. Friend, may you be filled even this day completely with his fullness, so that his character and his attributes and his love define your existence. Dear friend, believe it's possible. After all, Paul prayed for it for the Ephesians and therefore for us as well. Let's receive that fullness, and others will remark, my, how you have come alive.